History is not just a collection of dates and important names. It is not only about kings, queens, and big wars. Sometimes history is a collection of whispers. It holds strange stories that are hard to explain. These are the tales that make you stop and think. They are the puzzles that were never quite solved. They hide in the shadows of our textbooks, waiting to be found. These stories show us that the past was a very weird place. It was filled with events that do not make sense even to us today. We are going to look at some of these moments. They are true stories, but they feel like something from a dream. Let's journey back in time. We will not be visiting a famous battle or a royal court. Instead, we will explore the foggy edges of what we know. We will meet people who did things that nobody could understand. They saw things that nobody could explain. These events are like small cracks in the wall of history. Through these cracks, we see something bizarre and unsettling. These are the stories that historians sometimes struggle with. They do not fit neatly into our understanding of the world. They challenge what we think is possible and what we believe is real. They are the uncanny tales that history left behind for us to ponder. What makes a story truly uncanny? It is the feeling that something is not quite right. It is the sense of the familiar being twisted into something strange. The events we will explore are exactly like that. They are not ghost stories or fairy tales. They are documented historical events that happened to real people. But the reasons behind them are lost to time, or perhaps they were never understood in the first place. These stories remind us that for all our modern science and knowledge, the world can still be a deeply mysterious and unpredictable place. The past has a way of holding on to its secrets. So, prepare yourself for a trip into the weird side of history. We will look at a town where people could not stop dancing. We will learn about a ship that arrived in port with no one on board. And we will meet a man who claimed to be from a country that did not exist on any map. These are not just strange anecdotes, they are windows into moments when reality itself seemed to bend. They show us how people in the past tried to make sense of the senseless. And they show us that our own world might not be as predictable as we like to think it is. Our first strange tale takes us to Strasbourg, a city in what is now France, during the hot summer of 1518. It all started with one woman. Her name was Frau Troffea. One day she walked out into the street and simply began to dance. There was no music, there was no festival, she just danced. Her husband begged her to stop, but she could not. She danced for hours until she collapsed from exhaustion. After a short rest, she would get up and start dancing again. She kept this up for nearly a week, her feet bloody and her body weak. Soon, something even stranger happened. Other people started to join her. Within a week, a few dozen more people were dancing in the streets alongside Frau Troffea. They could not stop either. They danced day and night. The city leaders were confused. They did not know what to do. At first, they thought the dancers had hot blood. Their medical advice was to let the people dance the fever out. So they cleared a space in the market, built a wooden stage, and even hired musicians to play music. They thought that encouraging the dancing would help it end faster. This was a terrible idea. The dancing only spread. The sight of the stage and the sound of the music seemed to encourage more people to join the bizarre marathon. By August, about 400 people were caught in the dancing plague. They danced until their bodies gave out. Many suffered from heart attacks, strokes, or pure exhaustion. Reports from the time say that as many as 15 people were dying each day. The city was in a state of panic. The authorities finally realized their first plan had failed. They banned public dancing and music. The leaders then changed their strategy completely. They decided the dancing must be a curse from a saint. The remaining dancers were taken to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus. It was believed he had the power to cure such afflictions. The dancers were made to pray at the shrine. Slowly, over the next few weeks, the dancing finally stopped. To this day, no one knows for sure what caused the dancing plague. Theories range from food poisoning to mass psychogenic illness, a kind of shared stress-induced hysteria. But the image of hundreds of people dancing themselves to death remains one of history's most disturbing mysteries. Now we travel forward in time to the year 1872. Our story takes place on the vast and lonely Atlantic Ocean. On December 4th, a Canadian ship called the DEI Gracia was sailing near the Azores Islands. The crew spotted another ship drifting strangely. It was an American vessel named the Mary Celeste. The ship was sailing unsteadily, its sails slightly damaged. The captain of the DEI Gracia, David Morehouse, was concerned. He knew the captain of the Mary Celeste, Benjamin Briggs. He hailed the ship, but there was no answer. It was completely silent. Worried, Captain Morehouse sent a few of his crew members over to investigate. When they boarded the Mary Celeste, they found a ship that was perfectly seaworthy but completely empty. There was no sign of Captain Briggs, his wife, his young daughter, or the 7 crew members. The ship's cargo of industrial alcohol was mostly untouched. The personal belongings of the crew were still in their quarters. There was a 6-month supply of food and water on board. It was as if everyone on board had simply vanished into thin air. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 10 days earlier. The boarding party found many strange clues. The ship's only lifeboat was missing. This suggested the crew had abandoned the ship, but why would they? The Mary Celeste was in good condition. A ship is usually abandoned only when it is sinking, but this one was not. Some things were out of place. The ship's clock was not working, and the compass was broken. One of the ship's pumps had been disassembled, but there were no signs of violence or a struggle. A meal seemed to have been left uneaten in the captain's cabin. It was a true maritime mystery. The DEI Gracia crew sailed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar. An investigation was launched, but it only created more questions. Theories sprung up immediately. Some people said pirates must have attacked the ship, but the valuable cargo was still there. Others suggested a mutiny, but there was no evidence of a fight. More imaginative theories included an attack by a giant squid or even an alien abduction. To this day, the fate of the Mary Celeste's crew is unknown. The ship became a legend, a perfect example of a ghost ship, and a chilling reminder of the mysteries the ocean can hold. Our final tale is perhaps the most puzzling. It happened in July 1954 at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, Japan. A man arrived on a flight from Europe. He was a well-dressed, middle-aged Caucasian man. When he went through customs, he presented his passport to the immigration officer. The officer looked at the passport. It looked authentic. It had stamps from previous visits to Japan and other countries. But there was one huge problem. The passport was issued by a country named Taured. The customs officers had never heard of it. There was no country called Taured on any map. The man became angry and confused. He insisted that Taured was a real country. He said it was located in Europe between France and Spain. When the officers showed him a map, he pointed to the area of Andorra. He became even more upset, claiming that Andorra did not exist. He said Taured had existed for over 1,000 years. To prove his identity, he showed them other documents. He had a driver's license from Taured and checks from a Tauredi bank. He even had currency from his mysterious homeland. The officials were completely baffled by the situation. The man spoke several languages, including Japanese, French, and German. His story seemed consistent, even if it was impossible. He said he was in Japan for business. He even had a meeting scheduled with a Japanese company. When the customs officials called the company, they confirmed that they had a meeting scheduled. However, they said they had never met or heard of this specific man or his company before. The hotel he claimed to have a reservation with had no record of him either. The mystery grew deeper with every piece of information they checked. The authorities decided to detain the man. They put him in a guarded hotel room for the night while they tried to figure out what to do. They placed his passport and other strange documents in a secure office. But the next morning, the man was gone. He had vanished from the hotel room, which had been guarded from the outside all night. The window was locked from the inside. To make things even more impossible, his passport and all of his documents had also disappeared from the secure customs office. The man from Taured was never seen again, leaving behind only an unbelievable story that challenges our very understanding of reality.